The CEO is a very unique animal. I'm Alex Gertzberg, and this is CEO Confidential, where we learn about this rare breed, one heartbreak, one victory, one story at a time. This show is sponsored by the law firm of Gertzberg Licata, your ally for business growth. Hey, folks. Thanks for joining us for another exciting episode of CEO Confidential. We've got a really special guest today that I know personally, or at least the business, because I'm a patron and a fan of Luna Bakery. Today's guest is Bridget Thibeault, who founded Luna Bakery and Cafe back in June of 2011, first with one location in the historic Cedar Fairmount district in Cleveland Heights. A few months after opening its doors with just 15 seats and a patio, Bridget opened moved into the adjacent space, added 25 more seats. 5 years in 2016, Luna completes a second expansion, adds 35 more seats. You see the trend here, folks. But kept the same relaxed and chic atmosphere that they started with when it was just a 15-seat place. And then, this is how I came to know Luna. 2018, Luna opens a second location on Chagrin Boulevard in Moreland Hills, which quickly became my satellite office over there. And I became instantly hooked on the coffee and the tea selection and these just insanely amazing granola cookies that have like these cranberries. Bridget, I don't know how you concocted that particular mixture, but I was eating at least 2 a day for like 3 months, and so good. Luna is a proud member of Cleveland Independence, which is this great organization of 80 locally owned and operated restaurants. And Bridget is a fellow member of mine in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and a graduate of 10,000 Small Businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, Bridget Thibeault. Bridget, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. This is great. I'm eager to hear your story. So let's jump in. Bridget, tell me about the time when you shifted your mindset from working in the business to working on the business and to being much more of a leader and a CEO than a cashier, chef, dishwasher, and everything else that you were doing
right.
At Luna.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about me, because I actually made a career change when I was 28. It was about 20 years ago. And that's when I really started on this path to becoming an entrepreneur. I was working in Chicago after college at a big ad agency, and I was just feeling kind of stuck. I wanted to do something more creative and artistic. So I started taking culinary classes at night after, work was finished, and I just fell in love with it. And I ended up quitting my job, going to school full time against the advice of my father, who was very disappointed at the time. But I eventually thought I want to have my own business. And I immediately began producing cakes and cookies out of my tiny apartment. And for basically the next 7 years, I always had a full-time job, but I'd be doing this side hustle cake and pastry business. I lived in both New York and Chicago, always had tiny little apartments, and I'd just be mass producing all these wedding cakes and crazy stuff. And it was really tough, but working crazy hours, but I learned so much about running a business. I did everything. I did the sales, I did the marketing, production, obviously. And I was just so passionate about it that I didn't mind the hours. So then at age 35, I moved back to my hometown of Cleveland, and I got married and had my son shortly after. And now I was running this business out of my house. But I was really just struggling with how do I make a career out of this? So I was running the numbers on opening a bakery or buying an existing business, and it just seemed nearly impossible to make the numbers work. So I was kind of ready to give up on this. And then I met my future partners. So they were owners of a similar type business in Cleveland Heights. They wanted to open a bakery cafe. They had a specific spot, the spot we're in today at Cedar Fairmount, and they were looking for a pastry chef partner. So it was kind of the perfect scenario for me because it was, they were going to finance the startup. I was going to be the sweat equity. I got some shares in the business, but I had a very low salary. And, they had this knowledge and that they had this business that was successful and had been operating for years. So it's kind of this amazing gift that I was able to build this business from the ground up, but with minimal investment. However, I took that sweat equity portion of the deal very seriously. And I really felt that I had to prove my worth. I also knew this was really my only chance. So if I failed, I was probably going to go back to corporate America and get a paycheck. So I was determined to create the best bakery and cafe in Northeast Ohio. So from the day we opened our doors, we had this line out the door. We were extremely busy. We were totally unprepared for what we had created. But I got the sense right away that we had created something special in the neighborhood. I knew the pastry and food was great, but it was also a place for people to gather and kind of, this sense of community. So for those first 5 years, I literally worked 6 days a week. I tried to oversee every aspect of the business, the chef, like you said, working the register, doing the dishes, paying the bills, hiring, training. And it was just physically exhausting and mentally draining. I would take Tuesdays off because that was our slowest day of the week. So I basically never saw my husband and didn't spend a lot of time with my son. And I was getting older and putting off getting pregnant again. I knew I wanted to have another child, but, I didn't feel that I had the support from my partners to take time off away from the business. They weren't really involved in the day-to-day, or at least didn't want to be. And they would just tell me that they were, extremely worried when I wasn't there. If we were busy, I should be there. So I felt this pressure that I just needed to be there all the time. So basically, with the clock ticking, I finally decided at age 42, I was going to have another child. So I worked up until the day I gave birth. And I was thinking about this. I remember the day that I went into labor. I went home from work and I was sitting outside. It was this beautiful fall day in my backyard with my son. And I was totally relaxed. And it was one of the first times I had just slowed down and thought, oh my gosh, I have a couple weeks off. This is amazing. Meanwhile, I'm in labor, which was crazy looking back. But, I took 2 weeks off after I had my child and my daughter, and I went back and I even felt guilty about taking those 2 weeks. And I know this was not a healthy decision. As much as I thought I was doing the right thing for the business, I know now that I was setting a bad example, even for my staff. Everybody needs to take time off for mental and physical health. So on top of that, the financial stress was really difficult too. We had this business and this brand that was booming. Customers would come up to me and joke about how much money I must be making because we'd have this line out the door. And, let's be honest, a line in the restaurant industry does not mean you're making money. Little did most people know that we were not profiting those first few years. And, the average restaurant actually only profits 5%. So that's just across the industry. Anyone that gets into the restaurant business to make money probably is in the wrong business. But I just started to think I'm not willing to keep up this pace for zero profit. I need to make this work. At this point, my employee turnover was high. Burnout was setting in across the board for me and my staff. I got into this career later. So I really didn't have a lot of experience in managing people in a restaurant. And all of a sudden I had 30 employees. So we just grew so fast, but I never really learned, how to create the processes and how to have the levels of management that we needed. And I also just felt like there wasn't enough time in the day. I was, never getting a chance to like step back and assess what are our issues. I was just like putting out fires, like running from one thing to the next, trying to make things work. And I had these partners, but I just felt really alone, which was bizarre. So I kind of was at my breaking point, and I just decided like I need to find some balance in my life because I was just so stressed out. So essentially I just started asking around like friends that had businesses, asking them for advice. And then I heard about this Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program. So for anyone who doesn't know what it is, at this point, they've actually graduated over 10,000 small businesses across the United States. I look at it as like a little mini MBA for like the, someone that's already started a business, but it's basically just education and tools to grow your business. Of course, when I brought this to my partners, they didn't want me to do it because it would take me away from the business to go to the class. They said it was a waste of time. And so I'm not really sure what pushed me to do it. I think just because I was at this breaking point, but I signed up, and I really feel like looking back, that was like the life-changing decision for me and for my business. Because I met all these other people that were like trying to figure out how to run a business just like me. And a big thing they stress, which you mentioned, is they talk about, to get out of your business, stop working in your business and work on your business, which I never even thought of.
Right.
I was like all in every day, just work, work, work. So after, I attended this class, I graduated, I just decided like I have to change my role in the company. I need to buy my partners out because I didn't have the support I needed, and I needed to become an owner, not a chef. So it was difficult for me. There's still little things to this day that are hard for me to give up because I love baking. I love cooking. Like that's why I got into this business. But I also knew if I didn't have a business to go to, what was the point, So I needed to figure out how to make it grow and how to become profitable. And I also, set this goal for myself to try and spend more time with my family and just find some balance in my life. So, I was at this point where I'm like, I'm going to buy my partners out. And then I wasn't really sure how to go about doing that. So I was actually talking to my friend, Ben Biebenroth, who I know you had on the podcast before, another chef. And he told me about EO, Entrepreneur Organization, which you're a part of. And I just signed up. I was like, okay, I need another organization that's going to give me support and give me learning and, other entrepreneurs that I can talk to. So once I joined that, it really just set me on this path of like wanting to become a better leader, and wanting to create a great company that was sustainable and that could grow, and I could have, people work for me and be proud of that. So after about a year, I finally bought my partners out. And I made changes to the business. I raised prices, I cut down on costs, I started hiring better quality people. I began to delegate and empower my managers to make decisions without me. And I was just better about showing vulnerability. Like I know that's a big thing we talk about in EO, is just showing your staff that you don't have all the answers. Like we need to be a team and we need to work this out together. We also created core values for Luna, which, we really had no structure, no specific culture, nothing written down on paper. So that was big for us. And then slowly we started turning a profit, and it increased with every year, which was amazing. I mean, it's just, it's like you learn it all in these classes and these groups, but it's just amazing when you start to see it on paper. Um, and, the crazy thing too was like we were kind of balancing everything out and starting to make money, but we were still just like bursting at the seams in our little shop in Cleveland Heights. Like it was a very stressful environment just because we still had these lines and we were growing. Like more people were finding out about us. So, I mean, it seems a little ridiculous because I was just starting to chip away at my debt, but I made this decision to open a second location, which is the one you talked about in Moreland Hills. And, I just had this idea that if we could grow the company and give the customers more places to go, more options, and then I could create better management opportunities for my staff, and that would help me retain good people and I could pay them better wages. Um, so, that was my idea in 2018 when we opened, and we were on the path and everything was looking good. And then COVID hit, which for the restaurant industry, I mean, it's just been extremely stressful and a struggle for the past year and a half. But, like all small businesses, I had to make quick decisions about what to do. Like there was no playbook. It was just, we had these mandates from the governor that we had to go to takeout only. And I don't know if I could have survived COVID without all of this support that I had gotten from making these decisions in the past, going through the Goldman Sachs program, joining EO. So, very quickly within 2 weeks, I closed our Moreland Hill store for the first couple of months of COVID. And I just knew like I had to focus on the more profitable store. I had to make quick decisions. I laid off my staff. Um, and although those first couple of weeks were awful, I leaned on the support of my staff and my entrepreneur friends. And I just shifted my mindset. There was initially so much stress and anxiety along with what we were doing. But then I just decided, you know what, we're not going to fail. We're going to just get through this. And all we have to do is break even to do it. And really, it was me changing my mindset so that my staff could change their mindset. And we've so far done it. Like we got through the worst of it, I think. I mean, unfortunately, I feel like we're kind of back in it a little bit. But I know we're going to make it through. And, this past year and a half has been even more growth and self-reflection about what I want to do with the company. I think I was initially on this path of like wanting to grow. And this was a good kind of, let's take a step back and think about what's the right way to grow. So, I mean, that's essentially where I am. I wouldn't say like my story has an ending because it's an evolving process. Like I'm always going to be working on being the better leader and finding more balance, but I feel like I'm definitely in a better place than I was.
I loved that story.
Thank you.
It's so, it so exemplifies the entrepreneurial journey when it's done correctly, right? And it made me think that, um, you know, to go into business, you have to have this drive, but and this confidence, but you don't really know what you're doing, right? You just
Right.
kind of, right? Like nobody teaches you. I mean, you probably, I don't know if you took business classes or if you probably read a bunch of books like I
Yeah, a
did,
little
right?
bit. Yeah.
Right. But like you kind of had to go through those first 5 years
Yeah.
of, overwork and, um, insecurity about whether you're doing the right thing for your family. You kind of have to go through the pain.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot from a lot of entrepreneurs that I interview and I talk to and who are our clients. I saw a couple of major milestones in your story. One was finding your partners when you found them,
Yeah.
right? it seems to me that that was your first, at least from the story that you told, that was the first sort of hop that took
Yeah.
your business from a hobby or a passion project, making cupcakes out of your apartment,
Yeah.
to a brick and mortar business,
Yeah.
right? So I want to start there. How did you find your partners?
It's so crazy. I mean, they found me and they found me in the internet because actually, I mean, it probably goes back to I had a great website because I had a
Mm,
marketing background. So, like, I did all this advertising and promotion and I looked like a bigger concept than I was.
yeah.
So I had a great website and my partner was, just Googling like pastry chefs in Cleveland and like looking at what was out there. And he just called me like cold call out of the blue. And then of course we just started conversations and we started meeting and it just all clicked. Um,
Yeah.
so it was really like serendipity. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool how it all just happened.
And then the second hop is their buyout,
Yeah.
right? Um, and there's I say all the time, I think that at the end of the day, we are just creatures who um, are at our best, we're able to notice our pain and discomfort and see that it's reached a level that we have to overcome it. And it
Yeah.
seems like from the chronology there, it seems like you reached a point with your partners where you saw that you weren't getting the support you wanted,
Mhm.
and although they weren't calling the shots, right? They were pretty hands off.
I mean, they were like when I say hands off,
Mm,
like they didn't want to work on the business, but they would stop
yeah.
in daily and, check in and give their critiques and
Mm,
advice. And another thing about them as partners is they did not want to grow. Like they were kind of nearing retirement
mm,
and, they had put minimal investment in, that was it. And they just didn't see the value. Like, this is enough. Why would you want more?
yeah.
So yeah.
How did that go? Was it contentious? Was it an easy
Yes.
buyout?
No, it was, that's why it took like a year. It was
Mm,
really tough. I mean, they thought I was crazy. Like, why would you want to do this? Because at that point I had become 50% partner and they were 25 and 25. And they just felt like, why are you doing this for money? Like, you're going
mm,
to have more money than you'll ever need if this business keeps growing. Um, so I almost felt like it was personal. Like it got pretty
yeah.
heated. And then of course I felt like they were asking for way too much money. Um, so it was really tough. And I was really lucky in that my brother lent me the money to buy them out. So I didn't have to do like a buyout over time. I was able just to cut them
Yeah.
checks because that would have been really hard for me to
Yeah.
like keep it lingering for
Sure.
years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and this is the lawyer in me needs to know the answer to this question, even though it's got nothing to really do it. How did you evaluate the business for purposes of the buyout? Did you get appraisers or?
well, that's what was so interesting is that like none of us wanted to pay for someone to analyze the business because, it's one thing to pay someone to analyze your manufacturing company. There's definitely like, a way to do that. But in the restaurant business, there's not a ton of value. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
everything
goodwill.
I looked into was like maybe 2 or 3 years profit would be like your value. But of course,
Yeah.
they came to me and said, we want 7 years profit, and at this point, that 1 year we had started to turn things around and we had made some money that year.
Yeah.
So we kind of met in the middle. We ended up, it was probably like a 5 years profit, 4 or 5 years.
Right. Which, at that point, I suppose it's good that your margins were so razor thin,
Yeah.
right? And you were still kind of working in the business a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because, well, this goes to the next question, right? So, how does your P&L, um, how does the trajectory of your profit correspond to your exiting out of the inner workings of your business. When you became more of a leader, when you
Mm-hmm.
became more of a CEO and less of a dishwasher, and
Yeah.
I mean, you're obviously having to pay more for labor to
Yeah.
do the things that you were
Right.
doing, right? So your expenses go up a little bit or a lot, I don't know. But how do you do with your profit margins when you stop working in the business?
Yeah. I mean, it was huge. Like we saw an increase. It was a totally positive experience because I got more involved in analyzing like where are we losing money, and we're to this day we're still working on that stuff, like what parts of our business are making money, what parts are losing money. And the thing that's tricky about our business compared to like our normal restaurant is we do so much customization. We do wedding cakes, we do catering. We work with big accounts like the Browns and the Cavs, and then we do little, something at your house, a little party. So it's just a ton of different aspects to our
Yeah.
business. And then we have 300 people walking through the door and buying stuff. So it's a lot of different things. And actually this year, we're really focusing on breaking out all of our categories and analyzing. We just opened a production facility where we've moved like some of our production over there so we can be more efficient and hopefully make more money in different areas. And at this point, like my goal is to just pay my staff better and make it a place they want to work and they want to stay. Like that's how I see this business as sustainable, because I'm in an industry where there's a lot of bad places to work.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
And another just, well, actually, let me stick to the theme. I have so many questions for you, right, about like COVID and about staff shortages and all that, but I want to stick to the theme here. And the theme is working on the business instead of in the business. And it strikes me, you and I have the same thing that happened, right? Because I too was just all law practitioner for years, until I started to hate it. Until I started to actually like despise my own profession and how much work and stress it was. And despise is way too strong a word, but just I started hating my life. I did start hating my life. And there's two things that you did that I did. And I the 10,000 Small Business is a coaching, structured, you've got homework, you've got thinking you need to do, you've got a curriculum, right? Reading. And then you've got EO, which is not that. It's peer group stuff. It's gestalt. It's conversations. It's vulnerability. It's emotion, right? It's sharing. So two very different kinds of sort of immersion that you're doing with your peers. And I did the same thing with Strategic Coach, which was similar to 10,000 Small Business, and EO, right? For me too. And it's so striking to me how having that kind of whole body immersion, right? Is a totally different kind of experience than just reading books or taking a business course in college, or I don't know, just watching YouTube videos, or just, gosh, that's such a long, inartful question. I guess my question to you is, the on the business versus in the business decision and mindset shift. How specifically, how much do you correlate that with 10,000 Small Businesses and EO?
I mean, honestly, I almost 100%. Like, I feel like I was so lost. I was so in the weeds every day. Like, I didn't know how to get out, and I didn't have time to go read books and do things like, or I thought I didn't. So the fact that, especially 10,000 Small Business initially, because it forced you, like you said, to go to class, do the homework, it just made me, I mean, the fact I remember sitting in those classes like, oh my gosh, it's a Friday, we're so busy at work. this is amazing that I'm sitting here, I'm not there. Like,
Mm.
it was just this sense of relief, and like I can do something for myself, which I don't know how long it would have taken me to get to something like that. And if I didn't know about it, how would I don't know. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it really saved me and my business.
Well, and that takes really us to sort of the meat of motivation and why we do what we do in our businesses and on our businesses. And um, I want to talk, I want to hear from you about your thoughts on the guilt and the pressure that you felt and the sort of permission that you gave yourself
Yeah.
to not work. I mean, you still work hard, right? But
Yeah.
hard in a different way, in a way that brings you more joy and gives
Yeah.
you more freedom. Where did that guilt and pressure come from, and where does the permission to release yourself from that guilt and pressure
Yeah.
come from and manifest?
I mean, it's still a huge struggle for me. Like to this day, it's something I'm always working on is, there's this part of me that feels like I created this beast. Like, this was all my idea. And I was doing this out of my apartments and my house. And like, how can I ask my employees to work more than me? Like, this is, it's a hard job. It's what we do is, I think it's one of the most demanding jobs in the world. Like, because you're not only creating, but you're facing customers all day and you're dealing with all of their issues, especially like now during COVID. I mean, it's really a tough time for a lot of people. So, there's this whole customer service aspect to our business that is so critical. And it's just really hard. And I know it's really taxing on my employees. And, just recently, I mean, we're 10 years in at Cleveland Heights. And just in the last couple months, I started telling my staff I want to take weekends off. Like I used to work every Saturday and I would just go in and work the register and greet customers and help them out, jump on the line and make food if I needed to. And I still will do that. But I needed for my mental health to like spend some weekends with my family and be there for my little kids and go to their soccer games. And, but I just have this guilt about, well, I'm asking my staff to go there all weekend and they also have families. And, so it's a tough industry because I think so many chefs, so many owners pride themselves on working 24/7. It's the old school way of running a restaurant. And, I don't want my company to be like that. Like, I want people to find balance in their life. I have a lot of women that work for me. I want them to be able to take time off when they have kids or go to their kids' soccer game. And, but it's tough too when you're busy and you're understaffed and you need them to be there. So
Right.
it's a struggle to this day.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a final question for you.
Yeah.
When something like COVID hits and then hits again, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're being hit with those staff shortages and supply chain
Huge.
shortages, right? So there's these ripple effects. It does seem like your industry in particular is seeing a lot of like punches, just like gut punches one after another. But the reality too is it is part of business, right? Every business owner has to take those shots like on a regular basis, right? It's just, to me, it's part of. So my question to you is, how do you play the mental game? How do you play the emotional game? How do you stay positive? What are your personal habits, tricks, hacks to keep? You seem very positive to me every time I talk to you, Bridget. So how do you do it? How do you do it?
I mean, I think one thing is I love what I do. I'm so proud of what we've created. From this little idea to now 2 locations and who knows what's down the line. And I just think that I personally, like, I'm trying to take more time for myself. I try to exercise, which is a good stress reliever for me, spend time with my kids. But we are dealing with a ton of, staff shortages, or like, so I've never seen anything like this in my industry and all the trades. But, just this past week, we made a decision as a team to close one day a week
Mm.
because we couldn't staff, and to shorten our hours. And, I think in the past, I just would have been, well, we got to make it work. Like, that's a day of lost sales, and I'll come in, we'll patch it together. And I just said to my manager, like, that's fine. This is what we have to do to get through. And, so I try to stay positive for them, because if I'm not, it's all going to fall apart. It's like,
Yeah.
they're looking to me, as much as I don't always feel like a leader. Like, I'm learning to embrace that role more as time goes on. And I know I have to be positive for them, and,
Yeah.
Create the environment that I want to have at work. So
Yeah. Well, and I mean, gosh, when you can step out even one more step. So you stepped out of the day-to-day and into the leadership role. And then on a personal level, when you take one step out even farther and just look backwards at how far you've come. I mean, this story is
Yeah.
incredible, right?
Thank
Most stories that start out, hey, I was making cakes in my apartment, end with I was making cakes in my apartment, and then I had to get a real job, right?
Right.
Like,
I
that's how
know.
most of those stories go. I learned this trick in Strategic Coach. It's called minding the gap, and it is an instant boost of confidence, right? Whenever you and I are in very similar places in terms of just the time that our business has been in business, and the gap is the gap between where you are now and your ideal self, your ideal goal, because you never get there. It's this horizon that just keeps moving, right? This imaginary sort of like success happens when this will happen.
Yeah.
You never get there. You're always walking towards it. But so when you're in that gap between here and that future ideal goal, you're always disappointed because you never get there. But when you turn around and you look backwards and you're like, holy shit, I've got 2 locations. I've got dozens of employees. I've survived 2008. I've survived, or I guess you weren't,
we weren't.
2011.
Yeah.
You weren't in 2008, but you survived COVID.
Yeah.
You're still surviving COVID. You bought out your partners. You launched this business. You expanded twice. I mean, when you turn around and look back, you've come such a long way, and that has to give you a ton of confidence.
Yeah. I love that. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Measure backwards. That's the move. Instant boost of confidence when you measure backwards. Bridget, thank you so much. I just loved hearing your story. You made me feel good about business. Yeah.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Yeah. So Bridget, it's pronounced Thibeault, but it's not spelled Thibeault. It's Thibeault.
Yes.
Which folks can see if they're watching this or if they're reading the show notes, and you're on LinkedIn. Luna Bakery is it's on Twitter, twitter.com /Luna Bakery Cafe. There is a website, lunabakerycafe.com.
Yeah. Instagram, we have tons of great photos. Follow us on Instagram.
Folks, you got to try that granola cookie. It's insane. The coffee and tea you guys make is just,
thanks.
It's phenomenal. And you really do have like a great atmosphere. I haven't been to the Cleveland Heights.
You got to come.
Well, I do. And I will. But the Moreland Heights, the Moreland Hills location is so just welcoming and warm, and it's in this great little plaza. So folks, go there and apply for a job there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or your kids.
Yeah, totally. Bridget, thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to CEO Confidential. I hope you enjoyed it. Visit us at ceoconfidential.net and visit our sponsors, the business law firm of Gertzberg Licata and Cover My Six, a business solution that flushes out and repairs legal minefields before they blow up in court. We'll see you next time right here for another episode of CEO Confidential.